Hello, we're back again with another video on an interesting topic that we're seeing in the ad space right now, and this is kind of gearing majority of our strategies. So this is going to be a lot of updates from the meta side of things, but we're seeing on the strategic side and how this is going to sort of be the framework on how we're going to build out all the other structures that we're doing. So super important stuff. This could be something that would be a make or break for your overall business. And this also just simplifies the process a lot more versus having a cluttered account, and it allows you to still optimize different parts of the funnel. So I'm going to start by just having this up on just a general standpoint. So what a lot of times people, whenever they look at meta ads, they say, okay, we have this audience excluded, this audience included, or they're not using an audience and they're just, using exclusions as a way to sort of say, this is cold traffic, this is warm traffic. And we found in larger accounts, as you'll see on some other videos, is that cold traffic is not always as black and white, meaning that you'll see, warm exclusions. So you're excluding things like, website visitors, past purchasers, customer lists, everything that's a warm customer signal inside of Meta. And we're still seeing cold traffic not take up the majority of that, right? So we'll see maybe like a 60% cold, 40% warm traffic, or even in some cases like 30% cold, 70% warm, depending on your business model. If you have a lot of repurchasers or not, it tends to be more prolific, meaning that you're not going to see as much cold traffic. You're going to see a lot more warm traffic on your cold campaigns, even with all those exclusions. And so many marketers fall into this trap because they're like, well, I'm excluding the traffic, so it has to be, accurate, right? It has to be 100% certain that this is new customers, right? And the platform leads you to believe that, but whenever you use third-party tools, or if you look at, your back-end numbers of the business, look at your overall new customer volume, the new lead flow, you'll notice that when you scale up, it's not an easy one-to-one comparison, right? If I put $1 in, I get, whatever return I'm average getting, right? There's like a diminishing return aspect to that. And that's mainly due to the fact that you're feeding a combination of warm and cold traffic. You're not getting new customers to feed the rest of the funnel. So with this strategy in play, we work around that issue. And this is sort of, I guess, I like to say the new way that we like to look at things when it comes to building out funnels and strategies. So we have one side over here, which is e-com, and one side, which is lead gen. So these here, so view content, add to cart, and purchase are conversion actions. So this is literally the actions that people would take in order to essentially convert in the funnel, right? So you have someone that's really cold. In some cases, they might purchase right away, possible, but if we were to say, okay, they have to first view the content, meaning they have to engage on the website, they then have to add to cart, and then they have to purchase, right? That's normally the actions that you're taking place on e-com stores versus on lead generation. It's maybe just view content and then fill out the lead form, and then they go into the pipeline to see if they're qualified or not. And then if you're more sophisticated, then you can import back in the qualified leads to then get obviously better results because you're feeding the algorithm the proper data versus just people that submit forms. And you do that by obviously importing via CRM. We do this all the time and highly recommend if you can do this, but if you can't, still same concept applies, right? So we're just literally optimizing towards the action of the funnel, not the audience, right? So we could even have, let's say, all these audiences completely open, and it would still play favoritism on which type of user would fit in each category. So right now, one of the things that we're doing is pushing more into a picture that looks kind of like this, right? We're looking at just view content into purchase. Now, we like to start on purchase as like the main push first, and then view content to sort of add on and fill up the funnel once we hit that barrier in terms of efficiency. But this is sort of the general framework that I want you guys to think about whenever you're coming up with new strategies, because this is going to help you pretty much solve majority of issues when it comes to your account segmentation of cold and warm traffic. So now the reason why we also don't want to be targeting audiences, or why we typically don't target audiences in this scenario, is because of this issue here. So this is another graph that I have. So think of the action, meaning like the view content or the add to cart or whatever the case is, as your ability for the algorithm to essentially say, okay, I have millions of data points and I can optimize towards users that are further up the funnel because the action is easier versus further down the funnel. And you want to sort of start, like I said, with bottom of the funnel actions and then slowly move to top of funnel actions. And so what and I you know the idea or concept around this is that you essentially have the main campaign that has the main optimization action, and it's optimizing this action using user data from pages they visit, not on your site but on any site, location, their IP, their last search, videos watched, emails sent, words said online, past purchases, and millions of other little data streams that can pull information from. And so what this does is it allows your overall audience target, because we're not targeting any specific audience, we're using broad, to reach out further and further and further to a point where where you have a larger audience that's slowly growing because you're feeding the funnel with that top of funnel content, that top of funnel action, to then get more purchasers, get more add to cart, and just slowly work them through the process. But what a lot of marketers tend to do is they play in the audience criteria only, right? So targeted audiences, they have a lot of signals that are pulled from all these things, but the audiences are finite and they're categorized. They're not as dynamic in terms of users that would purchase from you, right? So like, for example, if you're, I don't know, a clothing company, you might have a user that's in, I don't know, that really likes dogs, let's just say. And then another user that, really likes cats. We'll make it kind of on an opposite ends of the spectrum in theory, right? Or someone that doesn't like dogs, right? So there's a combination of both. And so there are audiences that would not overlap inside of this, or if they do, they very lightly overlap. Therefore, that means that you're going to essentially have to find other bubbles of the audience to then capture that lead inside of the pipeline, right? So it'd be something like, if we're targeting people that like dogs, we're just going to stay within this finite amount of people and we're not really going to grow. If we're targeting lookalike audiences, it's also pretty similar. It's not as extreme as this, but it's very similar. It's kind of a weakened version of broad, in my opinion. And so with that being said, if we have people that like cats or that don't like dogs but would still purchase our product, we're not going to target those people, or they're going to be uncategorized and we won't be able to know who they are in the first place, right? So if you're not in this category of you have to show all these signals in this exact manner to fit in this audience in order to be inside of our actual campaign, you're going to run into issues to where you're not able to scale and you're going to hit a wall, right? So we see here flexible based on demand. So this represents the audience or your targeted audience bubble. And what's going to happen is, we might have, low demand. So let's say that, I don't know, it's not dog buying season or dog treat buying season, whatever the case is. Then your addressable market's going to shrink. And then as the season comes around, the addressable market's going to increase, and you're going to start to see that, total addressable market from the audience fill up towards its peak season, right? But it's going to fluctuate within this sort of maxed out audience size. And so what a lot of brands tend to have happen is that they'll say, okay, I have this much that I can scale before I stop seeing returns. Or they'll test another audience and they won't be able to allocate as much resources to it because they haven't scaled enough and they haven't had as clean of a scale in order to drive better results. And that's because they're not using the entire signal capabilities of the platform. They're layering a filter of an audience with less signals on top of another filter, which is their conversion-based, meta pixel, for example. So you're looking at an audience inside of an audience, and it restricts scale like crazy. But if you use, for example, this sort of way of thinking where you're optimizing towards the action on broad, and you scale the actions of all the little details of the users taking that the pixel data has, can then slowly build out the audience larger and larger and larger. And then you can slowly work your way up the funnel where you start with purchasers, then you move to, let's say, add to carts or view content. And then obviously, in order to scale a business, you want to scale the top of funnel content. So pretty much what I'm saying from this is that Facebook audiences are dead. The only time that I would use them would be on the extremely early stage of the business. If it's super, super niche, and you want to just get conversion data in the account, then that means that this audience pool that you have is large enough for you to get the data, and then you'll eventually transition into going full broad on the audiences. So then you can let the action of the pixel optimize around that. So this, like I said, is how we're looking at things now. It's been one of those things to where I I just see as the pixel gets more information, meaning just as a whole, right? Meta stores data from all accounts on its platform, and so it's not just using your own data; it's using everyone else's data too. As that data pool gets larger and larger and larger and larger and larger, the value of conversion data in the account is going to be not as high because it's going to be able to already correlate what type of business you are with the type of user that it's seen work for other industries or other businesses per se. And so it's going to be a lot easier for it to match it. And this is also why this type of strategy is performing better, because there's a lot more data. So then this process here of finding the right user on a broad targeting list is not going to be as hard as finding, or scaling past this volume here, right? And so a lot of times what we do in accounts is we'll just start originally just on broad and then just grow it from there, because it's a clean scale. We get creative testing. There's no issues with this creative worked with this audience, but not this audience. And then we can slowly grow out from a larger pool and not be consolidated and stuck within our own sort of makeshift ecosystem that we gave on Meta side. So if you guys have questions about this, let me know. This has kind of been the shift though in 2025. We've sort of seen it already in 2024 in accounts, but this is going to be something that I think a lot of other agencies are going to be talking about in the near future. Just noticing that, lookalikes aren't working, broad's working more and more. How do you optimize broad? How do we know the creative's working? What sort of, signals we want to look for, KPIs for each one of these parts of the funnel. And I'm noticing that, this is going to be something that is just going to get more and more complex. But the good part about this is that if you guys are watching this video, you're the first to the show per se. And you'll be able to understand that, once we optimize towards further up the funnel actions, we'll be able to get that data before the other advertisers do. So anyways, hopefully you like this video. We have a Skool community as well, where we actually show you our exact builds on how to do this in the first place. But yeah, anyways, we'll see you in the next one. And thanks again for watching.